I've said this before and people just always kind of laugh, but I don't think it's that funny. I'm not a huge Cher fan, but I don't know if
Cher made her first appearance on stage at the age of 14 with Jerry Lee Lewis. When she spoke, the world seemed to stop and listen. But in this interview, Cher didn't mention herself or any of the familiar names. Instead, she dedicated special words to an unlikely icon, Leon Russell, one of rock's most influential and enigmatic legends. What did Cher reveal? Find out what makes this interview so special and unforgettable. Before exploring Cher's sharing about Leon Russell, let's take a look back at his special childhood journey, which shaped a unique music legend. Leon Russell, whose real name is Claude Russell Bridges, is a famous American musician, singer, and producer. Claude Russell Bridges, born on April 2, 1942, came into this world with many challenges. As the second child of John and Hester Bridges, he had a very unusual childhood. Russell's mother recalled that he could not speak until his late childhood, and when she first heard his voice, she was extremely surprised. The first words he uttered were not simple words like other children, but a strange question. "What's wrong, little bird? Are you crying?" When he saw the little birds outside, that moment left a deep impression on his mother's heart. What made Russell stand out was not only his late speech, but also his congenital injury, which severely affected his mobility. A birth injury damaged his second and third vertebrae, leaving him with cerebral palsy on the right side, especially in his hands. 3 of his fingers were unable to function properly, forcing him to rely more on his left hand from a young age. These limitations eventually shaped his unique musical style. Russell once shared that it was the weakness of the nerve endings on his right side that forced him to develop a distinct way of playing the piano. "I never had the strength to play like everyone else, so I found a way to make music my way." Despite his physical limitations, Russell's love of music was undeniable. Both Russell and his brother were known for their passion for music from a very young age. At the age of 4, he surprised everyone by playing the Trust and Obey church hymn by simply listening to the melody. Recognizing his love, Russell's parents enrolled him in piano lessons early in life in the town of Anadarko, about 38 miles away from home. It was this persistence and passion from an early age that laid the foundation for his later artistic journey. Not only talented with the piano, Claude Russell Bridges also proved himself to be a versatile musician when he quickly learned to play other instruments such as the alto saxophone, cornet, and baritone horn. As early as the 5th grade, his talent caught the attention of his high school band director, and he was placed in the marching band, an achievement that was not easy to achieve at that age. The flow of music seemed to be innate in him, but the journey to realize that passion was not always smooth. Claude spent 10 years studying classical music, but his inflexible hands made it extremely difficult for him to play classical music with the traditional technique. Claude once shared that learning classical music required too many sophisticated techniques, which his hands could not fully respond to. Instead of giving up, he created a unique way of playing, simulating the sound of classical music in his way, creating a new and different musical style. Music became a source of spiritual support, helping him overcome his frustration with his physical limitations. Claude once said, "I felt like life had cheated me," but also acknowledged that music helped him find meaning in life. Without music, he might have been just another man living in a small town, perhaps a former football player or an insurance agent. However, by the time he entered his teens, Claude's world had completely revolved around music, opening up a career path and fame that no one could have expected. Nam 15 de Toy, Claude Russell Bridges, Kolan Jautiam Bok, Vao Fong Tukung, Ngoy Ban Hok Tan Tiet Guamin, David Gates. Trong lan hop tak nai. Gates sang tach kakuk Joe baby. Concluded ti jam niem fan piano. Jai chi la koi jau cho sung hiep am nach kwa hen guoi. Kakut ban jau juoch fathan duoi ten hom, the accents qua hong perspective sound te tulsa. Mot nam sao, kakut juok fathan lai trong album qua, Marty Robbins. Duoi 10 Robbins Records. Giup David Gates va the accents juoch biet gen tren toan kwok. Sao hitot ngiep trung hok. Claude lai tai hop voi Gates trong ban nats ko ten la the fenceman. Claude tung chiasi rang chin chiets radio am crystal tu che qua min jan jua ong gen voi hak sol mai. Giup mo mang han thuk ve dong hach nay. Mac du kwok song qua ong van kon hiu kuk han. Hung Claude jan chon kach huang gen tuong lai. Claude theo hok tay, truong trung hok Will Rogers o Tulsa, Oklahoma. Mot soban hok noi but kung thoi voi ong bogom. Elvin Bishop va Anita Bryant. Luke Baigio, voi niem jam me am hak munliet, Claude kung ban hak kwa min. The Start Lighters, Biur dientai kats kaulak bojia fuong, Mac du van chua ju toi vao kwe. Jeko the choi tai jai, ong jan sudang mo da I di gia va tu jat chomin, nghi dan Leon Russell. Kai ten segan bo voi ong suot kwang joy kon lay. Ban ngay, Claude ji hok, ban jem ong bio dien on hong kwan bar, va kaulak bo toi tam. Gan hu hong ko thoi gian nenghi ngoy. Toi thuong ngu gat trong gyo hok tieng an. Ong thuan han, nhang nim jam me am hak luon kien ong, kam the moi su hi sin ju sung jang. The Starlighters, featuring Leon Russell, J. Cale, Leo Feathers, Johnny Williams, and Chuck Blackwell, played clubs, bars, and nightclubs throughout the area. Russell excelled at the Errol Garner style of jazz during dinner, Blackwell said, and then switched to the more energetic Jerry Lee Lewis style when the meal was over. Performing at night and attending school during the day didn't give Leon much time off. I worked 6 or 7 nights a week until I left Tulsa at 17. It was usually from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. at a beer house, then from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. at a late-night club, Russell recalled. It was a grueling schedule while in school, and he often fell asleep during English class. But for him, the hard work was worth it for his love of music. After graduating from high school, Russell faced a major career change. Jerry Lee Lewis invited him to join him on tour, an offer Russell couldn't refuse. I didn't think about going to college anymore, he recalls. For me, it was a chance to travel, explore new restaurants, and experience places I'd never been before. Despite the challenges he faced in his life, Russell always found solace in music. But when he moved to Los Angeles, life didn't get any easier. Changes in liquor laws meant fewer venues to perform at, forcing Russell to work tirelessly to find his place in the music scene. When he arrived in California, Leon Russell faced a new challenge: hunger. I went to California, but they were much stricter about liquor laws, he recalls. I was almost starving because it was hard to find work at my age. Although California was not the land of opportunity he had hoped for, Leon was more determined than ever. He focused on perfecting his craft, studying guitar with James Burton, and trying to find work as a musician. Leon soon found himself in the studio scene, a period he describes as a turning point in his life. His talent earned him the opportunity to play for many famous artists, such as Jan and Dean, Ricky Nelson, George Harrison, and even Barbra Streisand. Leon appeared everywhere, quietly contributing creative elements to countless hits, even though he knew he didn't want to stay in the spotlight forever. Musician Herb Alpert once shared about Leon. Leon participated in many of the recording sessions I produced for the Tijuana Brass. When he first came to Los Angeles from Oklahoma, he always wore a suit and tie, his hair was neatly cropped, and he had no beard. Alpert also recounted how Leon would sit at the piano during rehearsals and say, "I don't know what to play." Alpert replied, "Just wait and see if inspiration comes. If not, that's okay. I just like his energy during rehearsals." And then Leon always brought something special, creating a very Leon Russell rhythm, always different and unique. Herb Alpert once praised Leon as a producer who had a profound influence on his recordings. Leon's music is present in many of the Tijuana Brass's works, from A Taste of Honey to Whipped Cream. Leon is not only a talented musician, but also a true gentleman, for whom I have always had deep affection. Alpert commented on Leon's unique ability. He is not limited to any musical genre. Rock, blues, gospel, or bluegrass, Leon can master it all. The ups and downs of life have been deeply engraved in Leon's music, creating a unique depth that few can match. Every challenge and every difficulty in life is transformed by Leon into emotional melodies. In 1970, when singer Joe Cocker was in crisis and the U.S. Immigration Service told him to perform immediately or risk being decommissioned, he turned to Leon Russell to help him put together a band in less than a week for a 48-date tour. It was a seemingly impossible task. Leon quickly found and auditioned musicians, rehearsing with them furiously. He eventually formed the Mad Dogs and Englishmen, a large, brutal but vibrant group that became a major landmark in Cocker's career and had a profound influence on rock music the following year. The group consisted of 10 musicians and 10 fellow singers, which Leon called the Cosmic Choir. Russell regained possession of the situation during all the chaos. Because he was so deeply involved in his substance usage, Cocker was not the greatest person to lead, because he was unable to give it his all. At one point, Russell inquired about the sound quality of the music, and Cocker responded by saying, "It never sounds right to me." After being at a loss for what to say, Russell decided to take matters into his own hands. He thought to himself, "I'll just do whatever I want." And he was successful in doing exactly that. Russell hired several players from the band that was consisting of Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett. Through considerable effort, he crafted a tour that was both raw and electric. Another vocalist who was participating in the tour, Claudia Lanier, said that Russell has a unique talent. He combined the white gospel with the black gospel, which resulted in the creation of something very remarkable. While Elton John was watching the concert footage of Mad Dogs and Englishmen, he saw something that other people could have overlooked. He is one of those individuals who was born with the innate ability to lead the musical community. It was Leon with whom I was observing. He had a natural ear for that kind of music. He stated that although Joe was an incredible vocalist, it was clear that Leon's band was the one performing. The force that Russell brought to the music was impossible to ignore, and his presence seemed to be larger than life. Russell was well aware of how to put on a performance that would have people talking about it for a long time. He was dressed tastefully in a top hat and a basketball jersey that he had purchased from a thrift store. He stated that he was an actor. Simply put, I was attempting to put up a show. While all of this was going on stage, Russell was also putting in a lot of effort to work on his solo record, which was released in the 1970s under the name Leon Russell. It included several collaborations amongst some of the most well-known figures in the music industry, including Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, George Harrison, and Mick Jagger, amongst others. 2 songs on the album would go on to become favorites, even years after A Song for You and Delta Lady was released. These songs would go on to break the confines of time and become favorites. It's not simply that these tracks were songs, They were admissions that were set to music. The song "A Song for You" was written in about 10 minutes, and it was written directly from Russell's heart. Once at a time, he acknowledged that it seemed to originate from another location. The speed with which it was assembled was something that he was astounded by. The voyage of the song would continue to take it to new heights and lows as it was recorded by 40 different performers. Some of the musicians that performed it include Ray Charles, the Carpenters, Elkie Brooks, Billy Eckstine, Donny Hathaway, Peggy Lee, Carmen McRae, Willie Nelson, Frida Payne, Helen Reddy, and The Temptations. The cover that Ray Charles sang was so successful that it earned him a Grammy Award in the year 1994. It was no longer only a song that Leon Russell had composed. Rather, it had developed into a song that had its own identity. During the Mad Dogs and the Englishman tour, Joe Cocker was the one who conceptualized and brought Delta Lady into existence for the very first time. A story that was full of love and yearning was presented via the song. It was evident that Russell's soul was there in the song, even though parts of the words had been changed in the version that Cocker sang. The song was an instant smash that conveyed an unfathomable amount of anguish. Russell could only move in one direction from this point on, and that was upward. The ascension of Leon Russell, which hath persisted. During the decade of the 1970s, Russell was seen in every conceivable location. He was the one who played the piano in Dave Mason's Alone Together, and he had his first success with the song The Letter, which was sung by Cocker. Russell performed at the Fillmore East in the same year, and he was joined on stage by Elton John during that performance. Russell was no longer someone who acted in the background, just out of sight. This was clear. As far as he was concerned, he was well on his way to being a celebrity to himself. Every one of his concerts was renowned for being unrehearsed, unscripted, and honest, qualities that reflected the guy himself. In 1971, George Harrison extended an invitation to Russell to perform IF was held in Bangladesh. Within Russell's professional life, it was a defining moment. The individual was not only adept at playing the piano, but he was also proficient at playing the bass and singing with Harrison and Bob Dylan. A Grammy Award for CD of the Year was awarded to the benefit CD that was released during the performance in 1973, further establishing Russell's position as a wealthy figure in the annals of music history. It was a whirlwind of concerts, collaborations, and studio sessions that characterized the decade of the 1970s. A few of the more prominent ones include an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, music that he produced for Bob Dylan, an appearance on The David Frost Show with John, a one-hour television special on Casey Yet, and several other things. With the release of Leon Russell and The Shelter, which went on to earn his very first gold record, Leon went on to release other albums. Through the use of the identity Hank Wilson, he ventured into the realm of country music and collaborated with Freddie King, a well-known blues artist throughout his career. Because he was never content with performing in a single genre, Leon Russell earned the reputation of being a man with many faces. Leon's creation turned out to be more than just music over time. In addition, he purchased real estate in Oklahoma, which contained the church studio where he recorded some of the most well-known musicians in the history of music, including Willie Nelson and Eric Clapton, among others among them. Of all honesty, however, the time that they spent filming a poem, Is a Naked Person, was without a doubt one of the most exciting occasions of Russell's career. It was because he detested the documentary to such an extreme degree that he refused to see it. The picture was held a secret for 40 long decades until Russell eventually had a change of heart and decided to release it. Then there is Hank Wilson, Russell's country alter ego, who is also a character. It was when Russell was traveling that he was inspired by truck stop cassettes And it was during this journey that Hank came into existence. Initially, it was an experiment in country music, but it eventually evolved into something more sophisticated. Roll in My Sweet Baby's Arms, the first tune on Hank Wilson's Back, Volume 1, which was published in 1973, became a small success. The album itself became a smash. It was a joyful distraction during a career that was so full of difficult situations. After 3 years, Russell and Barbra Streisand worked together to compose a song for the movie A Star Is Born. The song was titled Lost Inside of You, and it was a collaboration between the group. There was a nomination for a Grammy in the category of Best Album of Original Score, composed for a motion picture or television special for the soundtrack that was composed for this movie. A studio album titled The Wedding Album was also published by Russell in the same year. This record was a collaboration between Russell and Mary McCreary, who was his wife at the time. The album was produced by Leon and Mary for every song on the album except the last track, which was produced by Bobby Womack, who was also the writer of the song. The contributions that Russell made to the field of music were not limited to the songs that he wrote. He was instrumental in the success of the Gap Band and even contributed to the development of the Linn drum machines. He was a member of the Gap Band. His distinctive perspective on rhythm and swing timing was incorporated into the technology that eventually led to a revolution in the way music was produced. Russell was always looking ahead, always finding new ways to leave his legacy. He was always on the lookout for fresh prospects. When Leon Russell was traveling through the 1980s, he encountered several unexpected turns and twists along the way. He participated in the We Belong Together campaign that was run by ABC, along with other artists such as Aretha Franklin. A reflection of the shifting trends in television was portrayed in this promotional song. However, even at that time, even though he was appearing on screens throughout the United States, he never deviated too far from his passion for live performances. The act of touring had turned into something like a lifeline. In the early years of the decade, he was a member of Newgrass Revival and spent his time on the road. The boundaries between rock and country music were blurred by this partnership, which was unexpected yet impactful. During Joe Ely's third annual Tornado Jam, which took place in Texas on May 1, 1982, Russell took control of the stage performance. The robust crowd of 25,000 people was given a fresh lease on life by his appearance, and other artists, such as Joan Jett and the Crickets, shared the limelight with him. Russell, on the other hand, never stopped playing with all his life, regardless of how big or little the platform was. Without a doubt, that was his way. This was the only method that he was aware of. Russell continued to produce new songs even though his schedule was so demanding that it was breathing down his back. This was because the music industry was changing right in front of his eyes. It was another time when Hank Wilson's alter ego made a comeback, and the release of Volume 2 of Hank Wilson in 1984 brought with it a personal country flavor. This aspect of Leon was the one that continued to attract the attention of other individuals. The gospel and honky-tonk music that the cowboy with the piano played was somewhere between the two genres. The album that came after this was called Solid State, and it was a bluesy album that was recorded in the territory of Tennessee. Russell was discovered, as he usually was, pursuing sounds that no one else could quite pin down, and traversing from one genre to another with the ease of someone who has practiced it. Russell was back on tour by the year 1985, and his need for the road was the driving force for his return. In the same year, he released the album Best of Leon Russell, A Song for You, which was a collection of his most beloved songs that reflected his complicated and illustrious past. On the other hand, Russell never looked back, even while he was performing his most famous tunes. As time went on, they went on several tours with the singer Edgar Winter, during which they put on displays that were so impressive that they lit up the stages in both the United States and Canada. The combination of Winter's uncontrollable energy and Russell's consistent, soul-filled playing resulted in the formation of a collaboration that lasted for many years and continued to be successful. However, this did not continue indefinitely, even though Leon Russell gradually faded away from the public eye. If so, how? Fading Away by Leon Russell. Fast-forwarding the time a little bit to the 1990s, when Russell continued to create during quieter times, he poured new life and vitality into his previous songs, giving further fresh levels of meaning to what was already familiar. Fading Away was released in the year 2000. During the year 1991, he published the album Anything Can Happen with the assistance of Bruce Hornsby. It was a return, but it was not the kind of comeback that he had anticipated would cause him to once again be in the spotlight. Regarding attention, Leon was never particularly interested in it. The fact that his music was doing most of the talking filled him with complete and utter contentment. By the time the middle of the 1990s arrived, Russell had developed a more introspective persona. He laid the groundwork for what would later become his record label and issued the album Choirs of Christmas. This instrumental CD has the feel of a love letter that Russell was writing to his gospel heritage. Despite this, the past continued to torment him even when he caught sight of it. Hank Wilson was brought back to life once again in 1998 with the release of Legend in My Time, in Hank Wilson Volume 3, an album that detailed tales of years that had been lost and aspirations that were passing away. Leon was becoming less and less of a memory in the minds of the people by the time the 2000s rolled around. On the other hand, Russell's music never lost the impact that it previously possessed on people who were familiar with him. His performances were always delivered with the same level of enthusiasm, regardless of whether they took place in a small location, a large stage, or a festival. Now that he had stopped pursuing stardom, he was solely interested in pursuing music. On the other hand, as time went on, his health started to deteriorate, and in the 2010s, Russell's career began to see a fresh fall. The musician Elton John, who had previously served as Russell's opening act, contacted him once more with the proposition of working together. Russell's final years were marked by a solitary bright light, which was their project known as The Union, which was released in the same year. Russell committed his entire being to the album, which ultimately resulted in him achieving his 6th gold record, even though he was fighting an illness. His first nomination for a Grammy was for the song If It Wasn't for Bad, which was also sung by Elton John. His second Grammy nomination was for the song Foggy Mountain Breakdown, which won the award. The songs I Saw the Light, Heartbreak Hotel, A Star is Born Twice, and This Masquerade that Russell has performed have earned him more nominations for 5 more awards. The fact that Leon Russell's heart was still pounding full of music was further demonstrated by the fact that he won his 6th nomination, which only served to further solidify the concept that it did not matter how much time had gone. Over his final years, the stage started to seem heavier, and it grew more difficult to press down on the keys of the piano. On the other hand, Russell continued to produce songs, although he was suffering from heart failure and sugar treatment. From the moment he took his last breath on November 13, 2016, he persevered through the agony, refusing to slow down in any way. At the age of 74, Russell died away at the home he had been living in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. On the 20th of the same month, a public memorial service was conducted in the Oral Roberts University Mabee Center. The burial service for the celebrity was held in the Victory Baptist Church. Both events took place together. When Elton John learned of Leon Russell's passing, he made the following remark: "My darling Leon Russell passed away last night." I was fortunate to have him as a guide and a source of inspiration. Without a doubt, I will always adore him. Leon Russell was a well-liked individual, not just among his followers, but also among his fellow workers. Now, let's have a look at what some of the members of his band, the Wrecking Crew, had to say about him with the tragic news that such a talented individual has passed away. Because Leon Russell shared a good connection with the other members of the Wrecking Crew, Cher finally has the opportunity to discuss Leon in this specific interview. As she recalled, Leon Russell was a man who kept to himself. He never said the word boo to anyone. She stated that he simply entered the room and played his piano, and that was the end of it. Following that, Cher went on to describe an event that occurred when, one day, things began to shift, and Leon arrived at work fully intoxicated. I mean, she emphasized, completely intoxicated. Then, after that, he sat down at the piano, and for the first time in a long time, he was chatting, which was not a typical occurrence. There was a look of confusion on everyone's face as they looked at him. "Have you seen him here?" With a chuckle, Cher recalled the event. The lead singer said that Leon was entertaining, but that everything about him was surprising. This resulted in widespread laughter before the commencement of the session. Things were about to get back on track when Philip, the session leader, stepped in. Additionally, Cher recalled Philip's question to Leon. "Leon, have you ever heard of the word respect?" That's when it all came crashing down. Still buzzed, Leon sprang onto his piano and goaded everyone around him. Everybody went crazy. In a tone that evoked both laughter and shock, Cher disclosed that it took them 30 minutes to gather themselves. Then, trombonist Lou McCreary recollected an alternate Leon, an Oklahoma farm lad residing in a dilapidated hotel on Sunset Boulevard. Even without a phone, he arrived in town in a state of complete disarray. According to Lou, he used to do little more than loiter around the studio, taking tasks when he came across them. "Leon," we informed him, "that you need a phone to work in this town." He laughed and shook his head. But Leon, that was the genuine deal. After him, Tommy Tedesco, the band's guitarist, recounted an incident involving Leon and Glenn Campbell's session. As soon as Leon saw he didn't belong, he began to freak out. "Leon, just play the stuff you did in Oklahoma," Glenn responded, unmoved. There is no knowledge on their part. So that's just what Leon did. Everyone saw that he stood out because he played his game his way. He was unique because of his style. Even after that, the look remained with him. This caused drummer Hal Blaine to confess that he had long been impressed by Leon's piano skills. He possessed that enchanted touch, Hal recalled. The piano playing was just stunning, with a laid-back southern flair. Nothing more was required of Leon. The loudness was amplified by his nimble fingers. Larry Levine, too, couldn't help but bring up Leon, reminiscing about a session in which Leon and Al DeLore filled the room with their electric piano playing. He continued by strumming an acoustic guitar, and Larry was astounded by the music he played. According to him, Leon had octave-reaching hands. That, he went on to say, is unrivaled. Music was innate to Leon. It permeated his being and affected every note he played. The memory of a night when an 80-piece orchestra was waiting for Leon was finally brought to light by Julius Vector. The seconds had simply continued to pass. Leon was still not able to make it when the clock struck 8 o'clock. The door slowly creaked open, just as the tension was about to boil over. Lean entered the room and steadily made his way to the piano, hobbling as usual. There was complete silence. Seated down, he fiddled with the lid of his piano and started to play. Even before he began, Ben Barrett's sharp and sharply audible voice echoed across the booth. "Leon, you will be punctual from now on." From Leon, nobody heard a word. He limped out of the room, abandoning the piano unattended as he did not even touch the keys. As he left, the room became eerily silent. Leon has an air about him. No matter the impact, he never wavered from the rhythm of his drum. The other members of the band couldn't stop gushing about Leon since his tale was so vast. Despite working in a field that sometimes required uniformity, everyone acknowledged that Leon was one of a kind. Like his music, his eccentricities and unpredictability contributed to his greatness. That was something that Cher and the rest of the Wrecking Crew liked about him. His skill shone through despite everything. It didn't matter how bad things became. As soon as Leon got behind the piano, something magical happened. Cher had to admit he was one of a kind. He will always be in your mind. And Leon always made an indelible mark, musically and personally, on every session. Even after he departed, Leon's aura remained. He was remembered due to the combination of his oddities and genius. No matter his sobriety level, Leon had a way of elevating the music to a whole new level. Leon was a magnet for attention, even when he was alone. His music captivated everyone around him and conveyed the depths of his emotions. According to his former bandmates, Leon Russell was a man who had many compliments spoken about him. What about you? What do you think about his music and personality? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more interesting updates. Thank you and see you in the next video.